Hello everyone, welcome to today's class. Today we are going to look at percentage increase and decrease. In the previous lesson under this topic, we have learned how to find the percentage of a number and how to express a number as a percentage of another number or a quantity as a percentage of another quantity. Today we are going to look at percentage increase or decrease. Okay, there are two ways of solving a problem on this subtopic under percentage. There is a shorter way and there is a longer way. We're going to do both. I'm going to use one example to show how these two or how these two different methods can be understood. So we are going to use these two examples to be able to explain these two ways by which we can solve percentage increase or decrease. So they are very simple questions which we are asked to increase $300 by 20%. Then the second question here is to decrease $300 by 20%. So I'm going to use the two methods for the two questions, okay, and see which one we can be able to be using or we can understand better. Solution number one. So let's use the first method. The first method is to first of all assume that this new value, okay, that the new value is X dollars. So let's the increased amount be X dollars, okay, be X dollars. Now, if the new amount is X dollars, what does that mean? It simply means that therefore X minus 300 over 300 times 100 will give us 20. That's because when you increase a certain amount or you find the percentage increase of a certain amount is going to give us 20. Okay. So what is the next thing to do? The next thing to do is to solve for the value of X. So let's solve that. That will give us this and this will go, this and this will go. I'll have X minus 300 over 3 equals to 20. So if I cross and multiply there, I'll have X minus 300 equals to 3 times 20. That will give us that X minus 300 equals to 60. That will give us that X equals to 60 plus 300. That will give us that X is equals to 360. Therefore, the new amount is $360. Okay, so you can see the way we have solved that. Let me explain that again. Well, first of all, let the increased amount, because you want to increase this amount by 20%. So let's call the new amount, that amount that you are increasing by as what? Let's call it X. Okay. Now, if you call it X, simply means that the new amount minus the original amount over the original amount times 100 will give us what? 20. Or you can as well decide not to write this 100 here and write 20% so that you now have 20 over 100. Then you now solve for X. Okay. Now, this particular method look a little bit longer. Okay. Do we have other method that can solve this problem in a shorter way? Yes. Okay, but before that, let us solve the second one also. Then we are not going to use another method to solve the two questions so that we can be able to see how the increase in percentage and the decrease in percentage will look like. So for the decrease, we said let the new amount be, let's call it Y dollars now. Okay, now you are decreasing 300 by 20%. We expect a smaller value. Okay, so we are going to do 300 minus Y over the original amount, which is 300 times 100 over 1 equals to 20. Remember, if you want to write 20% here, You don't need to write this 100, so you write 20 over 100. So if you take care of this, take care of this, you have 300 minus y over 3 equals to 20. Okay, so we solve this here. That will give us 300 minus y equals to 60. So this one coming over here, this one moving over here, we have 300 minus 60 equals to y. Therefore, y is going to give us 240. Hence, the new amount is $240. Okay. Now that we have used one method to solve these two questions about increase and decrease, now let us use another method so that we can be able to compare the two methods and see the one that we are more familiar with, or the one that look a little bit more easier for us to solve. Before going ahead to solve these two examples here, let us look at the way or what are involved in this method. Now, we need to get a factor, okay? Let's call it a factor. That factor we have for increase and we have for decrease, okay? For increase, we have 1 plus the percentage. For decrease, we have 1 minus the percentage. Now, what do we call this factor? This is the factor that we are going to use to multiply our values to get the new value. Now, 1 plus the percentage, 1 minus the percentage. So in this question here, our number one question, the factor we are going to use is to find 1 plus 20%. 20% will give us 1 plus, 20% is 20 over 100, which will give you 0.2. So we have 1 plus 0.2, which will give us 1.2. So when you have gotten this factor, what are we going to use it for, or how are we going to use it? We now say that therefore the new amount is equal to the original amount, which is $300 times 1.2. So if you multiply these together, you get 360, which is $360. Also, for the number 2, since we are decreasing, so we need to find the factor that we are going to use to multiply this amount to get the decreased amount. So we now say that 1 minus 20%, that will give us 1 minus 0.2, that will give us 0.8. We now say that therefore the new amount is equal to 300 times 0.8. That will give you $240. Okay, so these are the previous examples that we solved. You can see that this one is a lot shorter only if you know how to do this. Okay, or if you remember this. If you can remember this, just use whatever factor that you obtain to multiply by your number and you get your newer value. So you can see that it's very far more easier than what we did previously. Okay, so now we have gotten this idea. Of course, we are going to be using this method a lot in solving problem about percentage increase and decrease. So let us move to the other problems that are not so simple like this, okay, and see how we can be able to use this method to solve them. So we have our third example. The price of a pair of shoe was decreased by 22% if the new price is $27.30. What was the original price? Okay. Now, remember what I said in the previous example and the method that we used to solve the previous example. We need to always remember our increasing factor and decreasing factor. For increasing factor, we have 1 plus the percentage, while by the decreasing factor, we have 1 minus the percentage. Okay, so in this case, we are decreasing the price of the shoe by 22%. So let's get our decreasing factor. That means our decreasing factor is going to give us 1 minus 22%. So that will give us 1 minus 0.22, which will give us 78. Okay, that's 0.78. So this is the decreasing factor. Now they now say that the price of the new, that's the new price now is 27.30. So what does that mean? It simply means that, okay, let's define the old price. Let X be the original price. Okay, remember what we did last time? The new price equals to the original price times the decreasing factor. So we now say that the new price, which is 27.30, equals to X, which is the original price, times 0.78. So what we do next, we divide both sides by 0.78. So you have that 27.03 equals over 0.78 equals to X times 0.78 all over 0.78. So this and this will cancel out. You have that your S with your calculator, if you divide this, you are going to get $35. Okay, so what it means is that the price of this shoe was $35. Then after removing 22%, we now have the new price as $27.3. Let us look at the next example that look a little bit different from this. So we have our fourth question. In 2022, the cost of a television set was $55. If the price has been increased by 5% presently, calculate the price of this television now. Now, if you look at this question, it's a percentage increase, okay? Because a few years ago, it was $550. Now, there is an increment of 5%, okay? So we are asked to find the price of the television presently, okay, which of course presently and now, okay, they just use another word for that. So we need to just find our increment or increment factor, okay, then we use it to multiply this. So to do that, we have to find our increment factor, which will give us 1 plus the percentage, which is 5%. So that will give us, if you use your calculator to do this, you have 1.05. Okay, so 1.05 is what we are going to use, is our increasing factor. So the new amount or price, whichever one you decide to use, will give you the original amount 550 times 1.05. So that will give us 577.5. Therefore, the present price is $577.5. Okay, so let us move to the next example. So the fifth question we have here, the price of an item was increased from 2,600 to 3,200 naira. Find the percentage increase. Now, the question is that, can the two methods work for this kind of problems? Yes. A problem like this, we can use the first method that we have used, and we can also use the second method. It can actually work. Okay, so I'm going to solve the question using the two methods so that we can see that yes, it can actually work. Let's start with the first method. So using the first method, the percentage increase will give us 3,200 minus 2,600 all over 2,600 times 100 over 1. So if we take care of this, we are going to have this minus this will give us 600 over 26, which will give us 23.076, which is approximately 23.1%. If you use your calculator to divide this is what you will get. Okay, so let us look at the other method and see if it will also give us the same answer. Now, what is the other method? There's a percentage increase. And how do we get our percentage increase? We get a multiplying factor, okay, or we get the increasing factor. What's the increasing factor? 1 plus the percentage. Remember, this time around, we don't know the percentage, so we can call it x percent. So that will give us 1 plus x percent. And 1 plus x percent is going to give us 1 plus x over 100, which is the same thing with 100 plus x over 100. So this is our increasing percentage. Now, when you use this increasing percentage to multiply the original amount, you get the new amount. Okay, though using this method now to solve a problem like this look a little bit more than using this method. So you can see that there's a kind of question that will be given to us. We prefer to use the first method. There's a kind of question that will be given to us. It's better to use the second method. So this is the reason why we should have different methods of solving a problem, so that we can always choose the one that is a little bit shorter. Therefore, 3,200 is equals to 2,600 times our increasing factor, which is 100 plus x over 100. So you can see that this is multiplication, so it gives us the liberty to cancel out this. So that will give us 3,200 is equals to 26 times 100 plus x. So we can put these two together. So you come and divide both sides by 26. So 26 here, 26 here, this and this will go. I'll have 100 plus x equals to, dividing this by 26 will give us 123.077. So how do we get our x now? We have that 123.077 minus 100. So that will give us that s 23.077, which is approximately 23.1%. So you can see that we have the same answer at the end of the day. But for me, I think I will use, whenever the two amounts, okay, or the two quantities are given to me. What do I mean by the two quantities? The original quantity and the increased or decreased quantity. Whenever the two quantities are given to me, I will use this first method. Then, whenever I'm asked to find one of these value and the percentage is given to me, I will use the increasing factor, okay, to solve. So that's my own personal view from what we have seen today. Now, under this particular topic, there's something that we need to understand. There's a misconception that students have on this topic. And what is that misconception? Is that when a certain amount is being increased by a particular percentage, of course, you get a certain amount now, you get a new amount. And when that amount is also decreased by the same percentage, you're not going to get back the previous amount. What am I trying to say? If we increase 300 by 20%, then of course we get a new value, and we decrease it back to 20%. The question now is that, are we going to get 300 or are we going to get another value? So first of all, we decrease by 20%. So the new amount A is going to give us 300 times the increasing factor. And what is the increasing factor? That will give us 1 plus 20%. That will give us 1.2. Okay. So times 1.2, what are we going to get? So we'll get 360. Now, the question now is that if this result is decreased by the same 20%, let's see whether we are going to get back our 300. Okay, so our decreasing factor now is going to be 1 minus 20%. That will give us 0.8. So we now say that the new amount, let's call this one A1, then A2 will give us A1 times the decreasing factor, which is 0.8. So that will give us 360 times the decreasing factor, 0.8. That will give us 288. So you can see that you won't get the same value. Okay, so you increase this number to 20%, you get a certain value, you decrease it back to 20%, you're not going to get the same value. Okay, so you are going to get something below the initial amount. Okay, so this where we are going to end our class on percentage increase and percentage decrease. Okay, so see you in the next class, and please, if you are yet to subscribe to our channel, please subscribe. Okay, give us a thumbs up and share our videos to your friends and family. See you in the next class.